Burning tires in a Hey guys, welcome to another edition of the Peel. Uh Happy early Thanksgiving. Um be thankful for everything that you got. Some people don't. I don't know where I was going with that.
Seems
Anyway,
legit.
um we're having a Joshless edition
Josh,
of the
free
Peel just
edition
like
of the peel. I really need to
um
make some sort of like
but
little graphic, like you know how like as seen on TV kind of thing, but like Josh free edition, Justin free edition.
yeah, but since I was not able to do the show, was it last
two
week or two
weeks
weeks
ago.
ago? It was 2 weeks ago. Yeah. Um I'm here today with Edson. Um So yeah, I mean, in case you guys haven't noticed, there's been a lot of movement around the league with the Dynamo. Tab Ramos has come in, and I think this is going to be a completely different look for the Dynamo going forward this next year. There's a lot of players that I would also like to talk about today. Um, some that might fit here in Houston, some that might not. Uh, it's always a fun time of year because you get to see other teams taking shape, other teams taking players from other teams. You have the expansion draft from Nashville and Inter Miami. Um, there's names being floated around there in Miami. Uh, just a lot of movement, and maybe I just didn't recognize it as much last year, but to me it seems like there's just been a lot of, as soon as the final ended, a lot of players transferring in, transferring out, and just being traded to different teams. Um, so let's uh let's get into it. Uh,
So
So
first of all, I will
Donovan,
actually
good.
want to get your thoughts like so far because you weren't here 2 weeks ago when we talked about this,
No.
but give me all of your thoughts since the Tab Ramos announcement, dude.
Um. Well, actually, I'm gonna backtrack real quick before that because I hadn't actually been on the show since the final, which I do believe it lived up to everything that we wanted as a fan. It was two teams that had no business being in the final, and I think it actually played out better than what a lot of people expected. Um, but I'll leave it at that. It wasn't a blowout. It wasn't. It was tailed two different halves, which
Mm-hmm.
is exactly what you want in a final. But what was your question again, Edson?
About Tab Ramos.
um, so okay, so Tab, I think it's great for the Dynamo. It is an amazing move for them. It was definitely a guy that I want to say I had thrown the name around prior to Wilmer getting hired. And I had also thrown the name around for the U.S. men's national team senior position. Um, I am excited for the Dynamo for the hire, but me also being a U.S. national team fan, I think the U.S. soccer team has shot themselves in the foot by not hiring him,
Mm-hmm.
and he had to move elsewhere. And with him not staying in the system, that just shows that there is a systemic problem within the national team, to where you have one of your best youth coaches in probably your history jumping ship. I mean, he should have been next in line. Greg Berhalter should have never been hired. Um, as for the Dynamo, we have already seen and talked numerous times about where the academy was and where it's going now. And I think with Tab throwing his input, and I always forget his name, the academy coach.
Paul Holliker.
Um, yeah, there you go, Paul Holliger. Um, I think with those two, don't be surprised if the Dynamo end up being one of the top five best academy teams in MLS. Uh, but there's two ways to look at this too. Is do they become the Red Bulls, the Union, the FC Dallas type of team where they pump out talent but they necessarily can't win a title? Um, I think it's good because they don't. And I remember when we were at that first meeting for Dynamo Fans for Change, that was one of the questions. When all the youth players were getting called up to the national team call ups, the Dynamo didn't have any. So I'm curious to see where this goes from here with players that are in around Houston. Hopefully, seeing that Tab Ramos' name is tied to the Dynamo and see if we're able to get players out here to want to play for the Dynamo Academy. Um, and you need that too. You need academy players on the senior squad. You can't throw all your eggs into the let's transfer, under the radar big names and hope that you can win a title because you can't. You have to have a happy
Yeah.
balance or equal balance. There you go. Um, yeah. So that's my thoughts on him. I think it's great for the team. I think it's horrible for the national team, but I think it is a huge step in the right direction for Dynamo, for soccer here in Houston, and hopefully it rights this ship that's been sinking now for a very long time. So,
Honestly, looking at this, the way that the Dynamo have kind of let themselves all these weeks, or yeah, pretty much weeks since his hire, you can tell that the Dynamo are changing things from within. The way they're going to be changing some aspects, the kind of players that they're going to need. I feel like they're going with the when Paul Holliker was here, you saw a lot of huge major changes with the academy, the relationship with other academies, bringing up, making sure that the talent, making sure that the players of the academy are actually, that people know about them. You see them posting a lot on Twitter about games, about events, about actual results that are happening.
can I pause you real quick
Sure.
because I do need to give a huge shout out because I saw it on Twitter and Instagram. Shout out to the Surge going out to an academy game and cheering on the players. I mean, how amazing does that have to be if you're let's say 15 years old and you're playing in front of Dynamo supporters at a recreational field somewhere. Props to the Surge.
It was actually the Surge actually got in contact with Texian Army, got in contact with El Batallon, and all three supporters groups agreed to do this.
That's
Yes,
badass.
it was amazing to see all of them there cheering, supporting the team since 10 in the morning in the first match against SKC. I believe, was it the 18s or the 20s, I think. And then at 1, you had the under 17s playing against San Antonio FC under 17s. You had members of all three supporters groups there, chanting and supporting the young guys after the match. The kids went up to through the middle of the field and thanked us, thanked the supporters groups for going out and being there for them. I think I was talking to a couple of the guys there, and I told them, this is something great because this kind of also hypes them up to, hey, like, people are noticing what I do. People care about, what I do, and if they're doing this as me being an academy player, if I make it to the pros, what can I expect? I can expect even more things from them. So I think it's a huge motivation boost to the kids to continue doing what they're doing, motivate them to hopefully one year, making it to the pros.
I think that it it seems, I mean, it's not a coincidence. It's just it's one of these things that needed to happen, and hopefully the other two supporters groups and the fans will jump on the back of um uh the Surge and see what's going on. And I hope the Dynamo ride it too, because obviously they've the fans have noticed that, okay, well, maybe this team's trending in a different direction, a direction to be extremely hopeful for, and hopefully this rubs off on the other supporters, the fans, and let's get, you know 18,000 out there for a match. I don't care if it's 8 o'clock at night and 100 degrees. Let's get 18,000 out there to support your team. And it all starts with grassroots stuff like this too. Get the name out there. I mean, probably some of these parents of these kids were just like, oh, okay, my kid plays for the Dynamo. Yay. Like, they may not even really know what's going on. So
it makes them feel a
you know,
part of the organization and not just an afterthought.
Yes. And I think maybe that's what the Dynamo had lost sight of prior to hiring Paul Holliker and dumping more money into the academy, is seeing that it's all grassroots. You have to start locally and small in order to grow something bigger. And it's almost like Dynamo, short of rebranding, have done exactly that. I'm curious to see what's going to happen with the marketing team, what other player movement they may have after probably the holidays. I'm curious, and I think fans need to be hopeful and optimistic about what's coming forward with this team.
I think more than being, the thing about it is, yes, they are making a lot of improvements, and obviously we commend them for those kind of improvements.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we have to be, and I think Nick said it best, we have to be cautiously optimistic about this.
I 100% agree.
Because, like, at the end of the day, if results on the pitch where it matters most don't matter, then we're pretty much stuck in the same place. We're pretty much stuck in the mediocrity of being a mid-table team in the Western Conference, not being able to make it to the playoffs, and worst of all, not even creating any players to export to other teams or to other leagues, with our academy.
Yep. If these fans can hold together, and the Dynamo need to understand that whether it's good press or bad press, I'm not talking about like the Tyler Derrick situation. I'm talking about, the team has a couple of rough stretches of games, or, they go out and win 7 straight games. Any talk about the team is good talk when you're the Dynamo and you're trying to put a solid footing back in Houston. And it's kind of a sidebar, but it irritates me every time is the Dynamo have won 2 titles. Okay. Astros have only won 1. The Rockets have won
2, I believe.
How many of the 2?
I believe 2 in the 90s.
Texans haven't won shit. All right. People always fail to forget the Dynamo have brought 2 titles here to Houston. Mm-hmm. So it also irritates me when I drive around, you see the combined logos of the Texans, Astros, and Rockets.
Oh my God! Yes.
Where's the Dynamo on that? Support all your teams in Houston. Support your champions. Now, granted, it was a little ways ago, but you still need to support.
I mean, the Rockets. It was also even more of a long ways ago when they won their championships.
Yep.
So that's
said Houston should be top 3 in producing talent. You were in a hotbed of talent here. I mean, you are in, and let's face it, kids from Central America, Mexico, they are raised 90% of the time in a soccer household. They have skill. I can barely walk with 2 left feet. So the Dynamo need to tap into that, and you're in a huge Latin market here. So there has to be talent here more than what they're turning out. So I 100% agree. Thank you, Jorge. He said he's listening to the Peel over at Glen Davis today. When was the Texans/Oilers? Lost on a Deuce says, should Houston rebrand?
No. Do you really want another Chicago Fire as FC?
No. I was going to jump into that later in the show too, because that is hideous. I don't know if I'd go total rebrand. Okay, maybe I would. I am more of a traditionalist, and I like the traditional names. I can't understand the hatred behind the Houston 1836. I actually think it's a badass name.
I actually don't like it, but because I don't like numbers and names.
See, and I like the German style. I really do. Like, I like the way Hanover is and some of those teams, and it's something that MLS doesn't have.
Yeah, but I mean, most of those it's the year of foundation.
Yeah, so I think MLS teams should have started to do it. I know for a while the Columbus Crew were called the Crew 96, and I think they should just be called the Crew 96. I like it from that aspect. If you want a league that's going to stay around forever, you might as well have a couple teams. I mean, we already have like 5 United teams.
Mm-hmm.
How many more United teams can you have?
And what are
So,
they uniting anyway, right?
yeah, exactly. I,
So yeah, go ahead.
as for the rebrand, though, I don't know. Maybe you call them the Houston 2005s. I don't know. I really don't know, but I do think that MLS would be kind of cool if the next team or two, Sacramento or St. Louis, if they went with the year they were founded. So that's my thought on that.
I'd actually like, I think the best one for that would be Sacramento Republic, and then at their year of foundation.
Yeah, that'd be cool. But I'm not a big fan of um like the Colorado Rapids. That name's annoying. San Jose Quakes. I get the history behind that one. Um, the Timbers. I mean, they've been the Timbers forever, so I can't be mad at them for that either. I
Sounders.
am glad that yeah, I am glad that Sporting KC changed it to Sporting KC. I mean, did you really want to be known as the Wizards?
That's
So,
pretty tacky.
um, and how many more teams can we add FC or SC at the end of it?
True.
So, um, I do like Sergio's response. He said, "I like the Dynamo. A logo refreshes in the future is needed, though." Um, I'm not a big fan of changing crests.
Mm-mm.
I'm really not. Maybe subtle tweaks. Like I actually like the newer crest that the Union have because it's more of a traditionalist crest than the one prior.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but no, I don't think you should ever really change your crest. I think that is you. That is your identity. Um,
Exactly. And
unless you do it, rebrand with your name. Um,
like for example, you take a look at like Leeds United, where they wanted to bring in an overhaul to their crest, and people were all up in arms about it. You had the same, I believe. Who else had something similar? Manchester City. I mean, they changed it to that eagle one, the previous one. They changed
Yeah.
it, and a lot of the traditionalists didn't like it because it went way out of the tradition. Yes, like you mentioned, some kind of years they modernized the logo a little bit, some details here or there. Just take a look at Manchester United's. Maybe they
yeah, but it was real subtle.
yeah, exactly. And Manchester City was a whole like huge, throw away the old one and bring in something different until this one where it went back to kind of like its roots.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if MLS wants their teams to become traditional in the sense of they've been here for a while, it's become like a household name for the cities that they're in. An identity. If they want to create an identity within the cities that they're from, you have to maintain some sort of consistency in their name. You have to maintain some sort of consistency in your crest. You have to not make it more of an identity, but more as a tradition as well, which is something that MLS teams lack because, you're going through these, the changes of, changing your name, changing your crest, without really needing it to. I think the only one, and I think everybody calls them out, but the only one that needs some sort of redesign would be New England Revolution with the
It's
crayon
funny
flag.
I was looking at the, on the top banner of MLS.com, how it has all the logos up there, and I was like, he's gonna say New England. That crest is a very 90s style
Have you
crest.
seen?
And it's
Have you seen the one that they did for their USL League One team?
I probably have.
Basically, it's
I
the
don't
crayon
remember seeing
flag,
things.
and they just put a
Two?
a Roman numeral 2 in the back, and it looks
Oh,
like an
that's
H.
hideous. So we'll do the good and then the ugly real
All right.
quick. I do thoroughly enjoy Inter Miami's new crest. I think the color scheme is different than what we've seen in MLS, and also the name. I like the Inter Miami because there wasn't that Latin flavor here in in the U.S. when it came to crest and names. So I am digging that. Hideously hideous would be Chicago Fire's new crest. I understand the rebrand. I understand everything about it. You're moving back into the city of Chicago, but if anything, you should have just modernized the current crest because there's also a reason they're called the Chicago Fire, and that crest screamed what they were. And
Yes.
this new one is
It's
horrible.
generic. It's like something. I'm gonna be honest. The new Chicago Fire thing. It's something that you would create in like if you were in Madden's creative franchise thing. Where you just.
That's the best analogy I've ever I've
I
ever
mean,
heard of
I'm
that
honest.
crest.
Where you just add basic shapes to a on top of an oval. With a extremely basic font, that's what it looks like. It doesn't scream Chicago Fire. Honestly.
All right, well, let's uh, let's change topics because we could be here all day talking about crest because it's actually a cool conversation to have. But we are in the off season. There is player movement. Um, as of right now, we only have one goalkeeper on the roster, and that's Michael Nelson. What are your thoughts on them not exercising Tyler Derrick's contract?
I understand why they did it. I
Mm-hmm.
think that it's one of those things where after he came back from his suspension, um, he just wasn't the same anymore, and so it didn't merit keeping him a lot. With the bad press that that he kept on getting even after the suspension. You
Mm-hmm.
had a couple of you have a couple of fans saying that they weren't going to support the Dynamo if Tyler Derrick was on the field. Those kind of things. So it was bad press nonetheless. He wasn't.
Jorge says move on to.
He was he he wasn't better than Joe Willis. What we were saying.
No.
He was struggling at RGV. So you got to move on, like Jorge said. You move
How
on
much of
on him and look for the future, which is Michael Nelson.
do you really think he's the lead guy
No.
going forward, or do you think the Dynamo will make a move?
No, I think the Dynamo is going to make a move for in the meantime because he's been the third goalkeeper right now, and so the
Well,
only time he has been called upon on was in Open Cup, and so
let's throw it.
he can't you can't. I think Michael Nelson is good, but there's a couple of details that he needs to improve on before he can actually get some minutes in MLS consistently.
Yeah. So let's throw a name out there for the sake of conversation, because this person is a free agent. He has not decided to hang up his boots yet. Um, and I think in the current state of the Dynamo, he'd be a perfect fit with this hybrid of young and middle-aged soccer players, and that's Luis Robles. Now we were talking before we went live today that his base salary last year was 490,000. I don't think the Dynamo would be able to afford that, considering the fact they still have other holes they need to fill. But it is a discussion that I'd like to have. Where does he fit? Does he fit? And is that something that the fans would want too?
I honestly think I think we need some sort of experience in the back
Mm-hmm.
because you need your goalkeeper to be able to take command of that back line when needed. He's got to be able to tell the people in front of him where they have to be if there's somebody behind them. They have to have that voice of command. And I think with Luis Robles compared to, let's say, a Michael Nelson, you'd have that voice. Michael Nelson is still too much of a rookie to command that kind of leadership over let's say a Kiki Struna or a Maynor Figueroa if he decides to come back. So having somebody that has a lot of MLS experience, I think, would help. And I mean, he's only 35. Most goalkeepers can go all the way to like maybe 39 or 40.
Mm-hmm. And I think that'd be a perfect mentor for Michael Nelson. Help him hone in on his skills. And who's not to say that Michael Nelson isn't the starter 2 years from now. I mean, how old's Michael Nelson? He's still in his early 20s,
Yeah.
isn't he?
He's 23.
So sign Robles to a year or two and just let him mentor Michael Nelson, so he doesn't fall in the same path as Tyler Derrick, who I think was in his own head a lot of times on and off the pitch. You lost that veteran presence with Joe Willis, but I think if you're able to bring in a guy like that, which let's be honest, I don't think the Dynamo can afford it, but the idea is nice. And I also think it's completely stupid for the Red Bulls to not re-sign him. If we get Jorge says we get a quality goalkeeper, are we heading to the semis or the finals? I say yes. Jorge, is Luis Robles that guy? I do as much as I can't. I mean, I could like him now because he doesn't play for the Red Bulls, but I mean, plus the union actually made him look like garbage all year this year. But is he that quality goalkeeper that you would like? And what's your top dollar you would spend on him? Because the Dynamo don't have 490 million or 490,000 to spend on him. So I'll move on and wait for him, Jorge, to get back on that one. We also transferred in Victor Cabrera from Montreal for Ramel Kyoto. How do you think that plays out for Ramel? And then we'll talk about Victor.
Oof. Well, I think for Ramel Kyoto is a fresh start. I think this is his opportunity to say, hey, you know what? I learned, or maybe knowing Kyoto, where it's everybody else is at fault except for me kind of guy. I think he'd be like one of those, I just needed like something about the organization is toxic, blah, blah, blah. I needed a new breath of fresh air, a different environment to play in. I think that maybe, under Thierry Henry, and I was having a discussion, I don't remember if it was with Sam with Sergio and a couple of the guys on Saturday about that. Would Thierry Henry be able to control Ramel Kyoto just due to the name alone of, I have to answer to Thierry Henry? And I told them, honestly, Ramel Kyoto looks like the guy that says, I don't give a damn who you are. It's all about me. Kind of like, I'm going to do my own thing.
I don't think Thierry Henry puts up with that garbage. Or I could be wrong. I mean, he's going to be a player's coach. So, do you think he deals with it? Or do you think he asks more of his players? Because he is a former player.
That is a really good question. And honestly, there comes a time where you have to forget that you were once a player. I mean, your years as a player is over. You're a coach. You've got a shorter leash with the organization. The organization expects you to get results in the short term. If you don't have the respect for your players because you're being too nice to them, you're being the player's friend, and the results really aren't, being reflected positively on the field, you're going to get sacked. And so I think Thierry Henry, I think one of the things that he said when he was presented was, because they asked him about Monaco, and his failure there. And he didn't go into details. One of the things he said was, I take that as a learning opportunity of what I did wrong and not repeat it again. So I think one of those things would be, you're not a player anymore. Stop treating players like a fellow player. Treat them like you have to do. These are my orders, and you have to do what I do, what I tell you.
Yes. So move on from him, because we all know the basket case that he is. And I applaud the Dynamo for moving on from him, even though I think it was painful for them because they threw a lot of eggs in his basket and it just didn't pan out. We did receive Victor Cabrera in return for Tyler Derrick. Or not Tyler, Romel Kyoto, sorry. Looking at his stats, the one thing that has stood out to me while doing my research on him is, yes, he is 26 years old, but he's also been injured a lot, especially or injured or / not in squad. I think 13 out of the 31 matches this last year. So I don't know if it's a total health issue. He did deal with 2 injuries this year. Let me go back. There's leg injury. Okay, 1. This year he just dealt with a leg injury where he missed 4 games. But he did miss a lot of time. Is this a player that we should be really hopeful for? Is this just a stopping point in his career?
I honestly think while it may be an improvement over, let's say, Kevin Garcia as a right back, I think with Bizama, I think that's who we're focusing on, and I think Cabrera is more of depth, or at least some competition, but to make sure that Bizama is 100%, is always 100%. That he's got somebody that if he pretty much, slacks off, he's got somebody behind him that can play, and I think that's what they're thinking of with this signing, because I think Matt Jordan has said before that Bizama is the future, but you also need to bolster up that depth, and I think Cabrera, coming from the River Plate system, having his success with in MLS for the most part, I think it would be a good backup for Bizama.
Okay, yeah. The other player we brought in was Darwin Quintero. We all know what he can do. Does this, at this point, is he really just going to end up being a super sub? I can't see him getting starting minutes over Manotas or Christian Ramirez. It's a tough one.
So there was talk going on. I believe Tab Ramos would mention that he would like to see Darwin more of a center attacking midfielder. So basically in Tomas Martinez's spot. And I think going up against Tomas Martinez, I think he is better than Tomas. I think he can be a lot more explosive than Tomas has been, and that would help out. That would help out Elise. That would help out Mauro. That would help out Christian Ramirez, Memo Rodriguez, in that aspect. But as a striker, you're right. I don't see him, because of his age as well. I don't see him over Mauro.
Yeah, no. Now the other question I have is, let me search this guy real quick. Hold on. That takes me to a few players that I did want to ask. Do you offer them contracts or do you just move on? AJ De La Garza. I mean, he is a fan favorite. He has been injury prone. Do you think we've seen the last of AJD in a Dynamo kit?
Yes. Because of the depth that we've been getting. Because most of the players that we've signed, Valentin, Cabrera, it's in those positions.
Jorge says that's MVP Garcia.
It's in those positions. And so right now, if anything, he's way back in that pecking order, and you're not going to keep him and pay him a salary just to keep him on the bench or send him down to RGV. You're not going to pay him an MLS salary just to have him in the USL. It doesn't work that way. You've got Junqua still on that left side too, as well. So I think the Dynamo are going to have to move on from AJ De La Garza. It hurts to say, because he's done he's done a lot for Houston, off and on the pitch. But you got to think of it in the future. We got to make sure that this roster is a little bit younger in some positions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, Kevin Garcia, as we know, is out of contract. Thank God. Um, Jorge said, "Hey, that's MVP Garcia." If you say so. Uh, I'm excited to see him go. I think he was a waste of a roster spot, and honestly, I'm still trying to figure out how the guy has an MLS contract. To be completely honest with you,
Because it was
um,
you want me to be honest why he was given an MLS
I want you to be
contract?
100% honest about the love affair with Kevin Garcia.
You want to know why? Because the Houston
Yeah,
Dynamo had no idea what direction it wanted to go in 2017 when Wilmer came in, and they're like, "Oh, let's just sign in RGB players for the sake of it."
I mean, would you like to see him go back to
I'd love to
RGB?
see him go back to RGB. I'd love to see him. We need some veteran presence down there, but that's never going to happen because Matt Jordan doesn't believe that.
Yeah. What do you make of Zarek Valentine, the former Portland Timber right back? But he can also play left back, so he is versatile.
I think his versatility is going to help out a lot. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you've got who we got on the left side. It's just Lundy and Sam Junkwa, who we know is not ready at all to be an MLS player.
How old is Junqua? He's early 20s.
He's early
isn't he?
20s, yes. So he's still young. He still has time to develop. But the truth of the matter is the fact that a USL player like Robert Coronado is better than him, has shown to be better than him. He's still got a long way to go. He wants to be the next starter in the left back position for the Houston Dynamo.
I guess the only other guy I want to bring up is Cabezas. I mean, he's been known as a difference maker when he's healthy.
Yeah, but how often?
But the fact, exactly. So, do the Dynamo, even though they didn't exercise his contract option, do they offer him a contract or do they say thanks but no thanks?
I say thanks but no thanks.
Yeah, I think when he is healthy, yes, he's great. But the question mark is he going to be healthy? And the guy hasn't been healthy the last, 2 years?
He's been healthy very little. He only played like 5 games, in this past 2 years since he had his first major injury in 2017.
Mm-hmm.
That's not enough.
No,
if you
it's
can't
not,
guarantee
and it's not worth
me,
the money he was getting paid.
You can't guarantee me that you're going to be healthy for at least half a season. I'm giving you half a season.
Yep.
Then
Lost Son of Deuce said he'd pass on Cabezas too.
I'd pass on Cabezas.
So
it sucks because he was an MVP in 2017. But if you can't stay healthy, why do we need you?
Yeah. Any other movement around the league that kind of shocked you? There's one that shocked me, and there's what made it even worse is nobody picked him up today. And mine would be Bradley Wright Phillips. I know we were talking off the air, and I think that is a guy the Dynamo should take a flyer on only because of his veteran presence. He was played more as a super sub towards the end of the year. But I would totally try to give him some kind of contract if they can afford it. I think he would add a lot to this team and not necessarily on the pitch. But I think it's something that Tab should take a look at, Tab and Matt Jordan. What are your thoughts on it?
34 years old, man. And as a forward?
Yeah, but he's still scoring goals. I mean...
I think it's a super sub, maybe. But his salary has to reflect super sub level. We can't give him a starting salary. He can't expect a starting salary being as a super sub. And if the player wants to be a starter anyway, even at his age, then it's going to be very difficult to sign him.
Okay, so let me throw another player. One that's not also young, but has more upside when it comes to putting players in the seats, or putting fans in the seats, excuse me. And that's Marco Fabian. He's no longer under contract with the Union. He is a Mexican national. You are here in Houston that has a huge Mexican presence. Do you take a flyer on him because he could probably mean more to you off the pitch than on the pitch? I mean, do you really think he goes... is he going to get a starting job in Mexico?
Yes. If it's Chivas, yes.
Um,
I mean, you asked if you would get a starting position in
yeah.
Mexico.
um, I I think the Dynamo, and I've been saying this for all season, because let's face it, everybody knows, but the Union won in spite of having him and not playing. I mean, he was injured at least half the year, and they won a bulk of their games without him. But I think the fact that people knew he could sub in made coaches play the Union a little differently. I think it would be the same here in Houston, knowing that, oh shit, we have Marco Fabian that we may have to play against when he is healthy. I think it creates a whole totally different dynamic for this team.
Yeah, but but we go back to the whole salary thing, because he's gonna want to be a starter. He's gonna want to be paid a starting salary. The Dynamo I don't think are going to be able to accept his salary demands or what he expects.
But if you're Gabriel Renner and Matt Jordan comes to you and says, we can sign this guy, and here's all the positive bullet points, the asses in the seats, the possible goals he can score, you don't think that Gabriel Renner would just be like, all right, well, I'll personally sign this check for him? You don't think that's an option?
I think maybe.
I mean, I'm just looking at the possible upside to having that guy here in Houston, because I think he'd be a better fit here than what he would be with any other team besides maybe LA or LAFC. I could also see him in Inter Miami.
There's not really a lot of Mexicans in Miami.
I could see him playing for Beckham, though.
I think the best thing for him, if it's not in Mexico, has to be Houston.
Yep. Jorge said Marco is a marketing tool, and that's all that I think the Dynamo should use him for, honestly. You want to tap into that market? Well, why don't you bring in a Mexican national team player of the caliber of Marco Fabian? All he's really there to do is put asses in the seats. I mean, yeah, it's an expensive marketing tool, but I also think that it could. Fabian Johnson, I think, is also on his way out. I mean, he doesn't even start for the national team anymore. I don't know. Fabian Johnson's a huge question mark, because he's been injury prone too, right? Fabian.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to think. Yeah. I could dig. How old is he now? How old is Marco?
Marco Fabian?
He's 34, 35.
Marco Fabian.
I thought
he is.
Yeah, I thought he's mid
30.
30. Well, the Dynamo definitely need to try to look at him. If he's only 30, guy has at least another year or two left in him of MLS play. Just all I'm saying is take a flyer. Look at the positives of getting a guy like that. One guy that I am happy that is no longer in the league because I can't stand him, and I do have a small rant about him, and that's Zlatan. I'm glad he's gone. I was over the show from the beginning. He said he conquered MLS. How many titles did you win? How many rings did you put on your finger? How many trophies did you lift up?
Amen.
You're not as great as you really think you are. And yeah, you might have won the scoring title, but that's it. That's like winning the Supporter Shield in MLS. It doesn't matter. I mean, you didn't accomplish anything. All you did was beat LAFC, but LAFC still went deeper into playoffs than you did. So, thank you, goodbye. I'm glad you're gone. End of rant. Yeah, I was just over him. Two names that are being bounced around. Yeah, good.
I hate that everybody that mostly a lot of people that I follow on Twitter, they just like clapped at that remark by Zlatan Ibrahimovic, like, go back to watching baseball and I conquered MLS. And it's like no, like, I understand that you have that persona of being an arrogant, but at least be arrogant about something concrete, about something that's truthful. Like you said, what did you conquer in MLS? Nothing. You didn't even make it to at least
No.
you didn't even make it to at least an conference final.
No. And that's what cracks me up about these players that come overseas and thinks that MLS is so easy. Steven Gerrard couldn't stay healthy.
David Villa.
Frank Lampard, yeah, David Villa actually had a decent time here in MLS. But you have all these guys that have done nothing but bitch complain about the league, but they didn't accomplish anything. And if it was so easy, you could have single-handedly won the league if you thought it was so easy. I mean, Frank Lampard was never healthy here. The travel got to him and stuff like that. What did these guys accomplish? Nothing. I think the only person that's came from overseas and accomplished anything that was a big name is David Beckham, and that's it. So if you're going to come here, you need to take this league seriously. It's not a joke, and that's why you're seeing a lot less of these older aging talent coming here. If anything, we're producing talent and transferring them off, or we're finding diamonds in the rough and transferring them off. I mean, look at Sebastian Giovinco. He was passed over by a few teams in Italy, comes here, wrecks shop here, and then transfers somewhere else, which I don't know. Where is he playing now?
He's in the Middle East.
Yeah. So, it's not an easy league to be successful in anymore. It just isn't. It's more than just being a big name. It's your team has to be good. And I think that proves more of how good of a player you are than any other league. It's not individual talent in this league.
No, you have to work. You have to work as a team with the limitations that the league provides in building a roster, and because if you bring in individuals that are very egocentric or that have or players like that, it's not going to work. You gotta have the talent in order to go above and beyond your average, but you've also got to be able to work together with others, people who are up and coming, people who think differently than you tactics wise. You have to adapt to that as well. You have to adapt to the different soccer styles, the customs of the city, the travel. It's a bigger longer travel in the United States than in Spain, than in England and stuff like that. All of that takes into consideration. No es nomás enchilame otra.
So Josh is on the chat, guys. So definitely say, hey, what's up to Josh? He had to work late tonight. Welcome to the retail life.
Glad I left that
part
behind.
of the reason, right? Well, the money's good, but it's the hours suck. But this is typically why during this part of the year we only do a show every other week, because it's too much. But he said, what about Kamara Lawrence? He's requesting a trade for what it's worth. He's a high quality left back. It's just Jorge said Lawrence is expensive though. I saw something that said Red Bulls didn't pull the trigger. But I think Josh said I think left backs are so scarce and it's worth the price. No ownership, they probably wouldn't go for it. It is an idea. Giovinco doesn't like the heat. But there's a couple other players. Balotelli is being linked to MLS, and I think
Cavani.
Where is he being linked to?
I know Cavani as well.
Well, I know Cavani is being linked to Miami, right?
Yes.
Luis Suarez is being linked to Inter Miami, even though he still has another year at Barcelona. I can't remember where Balotelli was getting looked at, but his name has been thrown around in MLS now for I think the last 5 all seasons.
And if you search Mario Balotelli in Google, the first suggestion Mario Balotelli MLS.
Yeah. Jorge said, "Name my son
Toronto.
Giovinco. Don't judge me, please."
Toronto.
Toronto. That's right. Yeah. As a replacement, a big name replacement for Gio, because they never really found that replacement for him. But they still won a title. So.
No, they did. Oh yeah. I mean, I thought Pozuelo was supposed to be his replacement. Not big name, but as far as position wise, I think wasn't he supposed to be his replacement?
I think technically, yeah.
Excuse me.
No, look, Jorge, that is a great name. And let's be honest, Sebastian Giovinco was probably one of the, if not the biggest star in MLS when he
I
was
wanted
here.
him for Tigres.
I, any team in MLS should have wanted him. I mean, the guy was a beast. He would disappear in games and then show up when you need him the most. Um, and his speed alone was a reason to get him. Because you were never out of a game.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I think he'd actually would have been fitting here in Houston because of the counterattack style of play that we
Yeah.
had. I think he definitely would have fit in here. Trying to think anything else. The U.S. men beat Cuba and Canada. Yay. That's a discussion for a whole nother day because I still hate that team. Um, let's see. You got anything else, Edson? I'm trying to think.
I think it's MLS. That's pretty much it. I know NWSL. There was one that came out today. Basically, Lisbeth Ovalle from Tigres Femenil is being linked to the Houston Dash. She's a really good midfielder. She's been champions twice with Tigres Femenil. They're in the final this season as well, and she's been she's been very influential. She's been one of those players that have been essential to Tigres Femenil besides Katy Martinez. If you look at her stats, she has scored with Tigres 17 goals in 36 appearances for the club. And she's also represented Mexico. So I think it's going to be a really good signing for Houston Dash if it does happen.
And to go back really quick to MLS, Josh was right on point. I'm pretty sure this article just came out that Kamar Lawrence requested a trade. Yep, 6:58 Eastern time. So there was one other thing. BWP was passed up in the re-entry draft. Juan Agudelo, who I think is absolute garbage, and I don't know why anybody would want him.
Wow.
Darwin Sorin did not get picked up in the entry draft. And then Miguel Ibarra was not picked up either.
What do you think of that? I know a lot of people have been wanting him for the Dynamo.
How old is he?
Miguel Ibarra?
Mm-hmm. He's been around for a little while, right? 29 years old. It's in his prime. I don't know. If anything, it comes down to veteran presence, but how many super veteran guys do you really want on your team? I mean, with Tab, I think Tab's expertise is more in the youth and younger players anyway. And I think older players, personally, would just get in his way.
One of the things that was mentioned by Tab was that like he wanted to make sure that we had young players.
Harry, I did not forget. I actually want to talk about this real quick. We got a few more minutes. Something that I am actually I hate the MLS All-Star game. I hate it. I think it should be done away with. But I can honestly back this La Liga or Liga MX and MLS All-Star game. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Liga MX does not have an All-Star game now, do they? So is this going to be on the Mexican side of things? Is this going to be all fan drafted there too? Like, are fans down there going to pick who goes to this
actual game? Thing? It has not been announced.
No,
but there's it may be that. I think it may be a fan vote, which will take like a percentage of the decision.
Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on it?
I love it. I think it's a great opportunity. I think it's more of the things. I know the Mexican side of things. The Mexican fans are kind of pissed off about it because their priority is we want to go back to Copa Libertadores kind of thing, and what you ended up getting was a meaningless game against an inferior league in their eyes. And it works well for MLS. I mean, you're seeing it with the MLS Cup. with that partnership
which
kind of
I
thing.
also think is dumb.
It's just taking advantage of the Mexican money, the Mexican fans' money, to try to hype up some interest into MLS. I think it's going to be good for the rivalry between the two leagues. Where you have the MLS All Stars versus Liga MX All Stars, but I don't see this being meaningful in the long-term growth of the league.
No. Now, honestly, what I would like now, I think the idea is great. But I'm not still really for the All-Star game, to be completely honest. I think if MLS wants to put their footing in as a league in this hemisphere, they need to put all their eggs in the Champions League basket.
Yes.
Because as of right now, Liga MX teams are like, oh, well, this is our game to win. I don't think they think twice about losing that game because they're not going to. But I think MLS, if you really want to put your name out there, you win the CONCACAF Champions League and you go to the FIFA Club World Cup. Then that puts your league on the map. And I know FIFA is talking about rebranding or reorganizing the FIFA Club World Cup.
Apparently, I think CONCACAF would get two teams in because they want to expand the Club World Cup. And instead of it being one per confederation, I think they're trying to expand on that. And I know for sure it would be two for CONCACAF, which means they're two finalists.
So how would that work then?
You're two finalists.
At that point, then winning it doesn't really matter unless it put. Well, I guess it would because it would have to do with seeding and what pot. Yeah. So, Barra 29 years old. Is a bar, right?
Honestly, I would like to go
29.
To LA just to see that the game, the MLS, All-Star game, especially if Gignac gets voted in for Liga MX All-Stars.
Yeah.
But as far as like I said, for the viability of the league, I don't see like you said.
I don't think it really matters.
I think like you said, they're putting their eggs in the money basket and not really in the growth of the league talent-wise aspect.
No, I think they really need to focus more on Champions League, and I think they need to worry about how their season is scheduled so they can compete in the Champions League. Because Liga MX teams are in the middle of their season, or they're in the end of their season, but they're in form, aren't they?
No, it's in the middle of the
season.
It's the middle of the season.
Yeah.
Because usually Liga MX starts in the middle of January.
Yeah. So we're always going to be in a disadvantage. So if anything, you need preseason to start January 3rd. And your first games need to be the end of January, beginning of February.
Even if it means putting the northern teams away in the beginning of the season because of winter. But I think it'd be more viable for MLS in the long term.
The fans need to realize that there's a bigger picture than just MLS Cup when it comes to this. And if that means you sacrifice one or two games to possibly beat a Mexican team and then get blown out by a Real Madrid, in a FIFA Club World Cup game, then I'd do it. I mean,
but at least you're showing the naysayers that you are taking things in the right direction. If you never ever go up against the best, what are you currently being benchmarked, right?
Yeah. Well, I do have some work to get out of the way, and I totally didn't do it the whole podcast because we were talking all podcast. But please give this video a like, share it, follow us on Twitter, the PO5, follow us on Facebook. The PO5. We have an Instagram too, which is also the PO5. Wouldn't be surprised if Edson gets us a Snapchat at some point.
I don't even use it for myself.
Yeah, right. Be sure to also subscribe to our channel on YouTube. I should have this podcast either loaded up tonight. We're 11/25/2019, or early tomorrow morning because I'm off. So be on the lookout for that. You can find us on, SoundCloud,
Stitcher,
Apple Music, Stitcher, Google, Google Podcast. There's one other. Oh, Spotify. We're also on
Yeah.
Spotify. So be sure to check us all out there. Check out Edson's show down in the valley. Um, he, it's more than just being a Dynamo fan. You need to know. You could be a more well-rounded fan and know every aspect of this organization and our partnership with the
I
Toros.
just want to kind of
So,
going into that. One of the things that irks me is hearing Dynamo fans say nobody cares about the Toros. This is your future you're talking about. These are potential
yep.
future players. And it's one of the things I talked about it at the Dynamo Fans for Change meeting that we just had a couple of days ago. Is, I feel like the fans, for the most part, here in Houston, have no idea what's going on, what to expect from these players. That when they come, they brush them off right away, and things like that. Where because they're not, the team isn't being promoted by the Dynamo or the media here.
Mm-hmm.
If
Well,
I'm gonna be
to be completely honest though, Edson, the media here barely cares about the Dynamo, so it makes you think they're going to cover the Toros.
Yeah, but you have other more Dynamo focused pundits that the only time they talk about the Toros is to brush them off and saying, "Oh, that franchise does not deserve to be in. Why is that franchise in the Valley? Why isn't it here in Houston?" kind of thing.
Well, that's why we have you, so you can fill us in on all the Toro stuff.
Thank you. But yeah.
We also, I'm gonna get a hold of Tony and Nick, and we're gonna try to get them on the show too. We've got supporters we still want to try to get on the show. Dynamo Fans for Change did just have a meeting. Was that last week?
This Tuesday.
We definitely
this past Tuesday.
Yeah, this last Tuesday. We definitely want to get more info on that. I can't promise that we're going to have a show on Monday, but if we're able to get one of them on the show,
Down in the Valley's preparing a surprise. So keep in. So keep follow us on all our social media as well.
Plug it. What time's the show? What day is the show on? Plug it.
So usually our shows would be Wednesdays at 7 p.m. on the Down in the Valley YouTube channel. You follow us on our social media. We've got Twitter at Down in the RGV, Facebook.com/Down in the RGV, Instagram Down in the RGV as well. And we've also got a website which is ditvpodcast.com. We'll be uploading articles not only for the Toros, but also we've got a surprise for Dynamo related content as well that we'll be announcing in the next couple of days, hopefully.
I do also need to get. I don't think this will be loaded up on Dynamo Theory, but we are a regular on Dynamo Theory. I'm just having verification issues with their security. But this will also be up there. But I think that's going to do it for us. Everybody have a safe and fulfilling Thanksgiving. Look forward to talking to you this week or next week.
So what are you thankful
for? That's an open-ended question. Jokingly, I'm thankful for the Union having a decent season this year. But in all realness, I am thankful for the friends and the family that I have that surround me. I have an amazing wife. I have amazing friends, pretty amazing family. Between you and Josh, you guys are like brothers. So, yeah, I'm thankful for everything that I got. So,
of course. I'm honestly very thankful. Kind of the same, my family, my friends, you guys, the people that came and went in my life. I understand life happens, things happen. But at the end of the day, it's a learning experience, and I'm really, really, really thankful for the positive and the negative experiences that I've had this year. We can only go up from there.
Yep. All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for us. As always, thank you guys. Forever Orange and Peel out.
All right. Let's get out of here.